be a vote to decide. My job as the judge is just to hear objections and make sure the flow of the courtroom happens properly. In other words, it doesn't matter that my son's an attorney. Bailiff, would you please swear in the witnesses?
Will all witnesses and parties who are here to give a testimony in these proceedings please step to the front? The front, guys.
Thank you, Bailiff.
Not that close, George. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and your testimony will comply with the rules of the Ohio mock trial competition? You may be seated.
Thank you, Bailiff. At this point, we will hear opening statements as the burden of proof falls with the prosecution. You may give your opening statement first.
Permission to proceed, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Honorable Judge Loescher, and attendees, we, the state of Buckeye, are here today because two men committed a crime, and one of them doesn't want to pay his fair share. The other has forfeited his entire business and any potential source of income that he might have. We are here today to show you two things. Firstly, we are here to show you that Mr. Ash Espinosa was the leader in this conspiracy. He stole money from a school to pay for a broken belt in the junkyard he worked at. The Eighth Amendment clause on excessive fines is the second reason we are here today. We are here today to show you that his Camaro does not violate that clause. There's a precedent here for the fact that Ash was the leader under the case U.S. v. Betancourt. Essentially, there are 7 qualities of leadership that may be presented in a court to prove that someone is the leader. The first is exercise of decision-making authority. The second, nature of participation of the commission of the offense. The third, recruitment of accomplices. The fourth, a larger share in the fruits of the crime. The fifth, degree of participation in the planning of the offense. The sixth, scope of the illegal activity. And finally, the seventh, the degree of control exercised over others. We also follow the Ohio v. O'Malley precedent for forfeiture. That states that leaders can be held accountable for all damages. In addition to this, even if the Eighth Amendment clause applied to Mr. Espinosa's Camaro, he has signed a plea deal agreeing that the decisions he made could be held against him and that he could be held responsible for up to $1 million in fines, damages, and forfeiture. Today, you will hear the defense argue with emotion and feelings, while you will hear us present logic and facts. Today, you will hear us call 3 witnesses to the stand. Firstly, we will call Mr. Harley Diallo himself. He will testify as to the 7 qualities of leadership and how they have been exhibited by Mr. Ash Espinosa. Secondly, you will hear from Mr. Makani Kikoa as to how Ash Espinosa pulled off the crime. You will also hear from him regarding the qualities of leadership that Espinosa exhibited. Finally, we will call Mr. Gray Obasanya to the stand. He will tell you that the 1967 Chevrolet Camaro that Mr. Espinosa and his lawyers claim is worth $80,000 is simply not worth that much. Today, I beg you to set aside emotion and your feelings about this case. Don't let the defense play you like a group of harps. Law in the U.S. does not depend on emotional testimony. It depends on facts. The facts demonstrate that Ash was the leader. He stole from a school to benefit himself. Somebody needs to be held responsible for these missing funds. Today, we will demonstrate that that person should be Ash Espinosa. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Would the defense care to make an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Your Honor, members of the jury, my name is Abby Wall, and I am here today to represent the defendant, Ash Espinosa. Today, we are not here to argue whether Espinosa was guilty or not of this crime. We aren't even here to punish him. He's already pled guilty for the crimes that he has committed, and he is serving his time in jail. He feels deeply sorry for the wrongs that he has done within this scheme. Today, we will demonstrate to you that Espinosa is in fact not the leader of this conspiracy, but a father who was victimized by Harley Diallo in the state, who had a decision to make ends meet and to save his family and keep them afloat. Opposing counsel will try and convince you that Espinosa was the main leader in this, or that Espinosa is the leader of this scheme. However, we, as the defense, will show you today that it was Harley Diallo who was the main leader in this scheme. It was Diallo who brought this entire mess down on Espinosa. Today, you will hear from 3 witnesses. First, you will hear from Oakley Gale, Ash Espinosa's son, that despite the embezzlement of money, Espinosa was not able to make ends meet. But Diallo was still able to take him out to lavish dinners and give him expensive gifts. Furthermore, we will show you Diallo's own plea deal, where he admits his guilt and knowledge of all of the operations. Within this entire mess, Oakley's 1967 Camaro was taken away from him to repay the stolen money. The seizing of this Camaro is in addition to the restitution that Mr. Espinosa has already made. And it is an excessive and violation of the 8th Amendment. You will hear today from an experienced auto appraiser, Mr. Presley Aoki, that this Chevy Camaro is worth approximately $80,000. Taking all of that information and the restitution that Mr. Espinosa has already paid, you will clearly see that the state of Buckeye has acted excessively on his punishment. Finally, you will hear from Mr. Ash Espinosa himself, where you will be shown that he was not the leader of this entire conspiracy. We ask that at the end of this trial, you consider all of the information that you have heard, and that you understand that Espinosa is not the leader, and that this car has too high of a value to be taken from him. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. I would like to remind members of our audience that no electronic devices are allowed to be out or being used in my courtroom. And if they are, I will hold you in contempt of court and have the bailiff remove you to Mr. Bendick's office. Thank you. Would the state care to make their case?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. We would like to call Mr. Harley Diallo to the stand.
Mr. Diallo, would you please take the stand? Mr. Diallo, I do remind you, you are under oath. Make sure you pull the mic in so everybody can hear you well.
Hello? Okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. Diallo. Could you please introduce yourself to the court?
Hello, my name is Harley Diallo. I'm currently serving time in jail, and I was a previous owner of Diallo Scrap and Sale in Trillium County.
How long have you been working in a junkyard, Mr. Diallo?
Since my junior year of high school, I've been working, and when I was 20, I started my own.
What is your relationship to the defendant, Ash Espinosa?
On paper, he's my cousin.
How is your relationship with Mr. Espinosa?
His parents died while he was young, so he grew up with me and my family, so we're more like brothers today.
Was your cousin also in the junkyarding business?
Not until the events of this case.
Then what did Mr. Espinosa do?
He went to college and became a treasurer at Trillium High School.
Were you surprised with his decision to take the job at Trillium?
I was. I always thought it was strange that someone that went to college and got such a good education would take a job that's so low paying.
What made you think he was highly knowledgeable about finance?
Well, that is what he went to college for, and he said that he graduated with honors, so I believe him to be well versed in that knowledge.
Mr. Espinosa, how did the pandemic impact your business?
At first, it wasn't too bad when the mask mandates were rolled out because the junkyard was already an outdoor business. That wasn't something I had to worry about. But once the lockdown started, people stopped traveling, so there were less and less cars being impounded and less accidents happening, meaning no junk cars.
I apologize. I referred to you as Mr. Espinosa. Mr. Diallo, how was your relationship with Mr. Espinosa throughout the pandemic?
Once he got back from college, we were still living within the same area because we were both in Trillium, so we stayed pretty close through that time.
And how was Mr. Espinosa's work throughout this time?
I always knew he was struggling. He was always like barely seeming to make ends meet, but when COVID happened and Trillium the school shut down, they halved his pay and his hours, so he was really struggling.
Did you do anything to try and help him?
Yes, I offered him a job at the junkyard.
How far did this business involvement go?
Well, first, when I hired him, he asked for a little more than the salary, so I ended up giving him 20% of my company. And at first, he was just going around doing appraisals on junk parts, trying to figure out their value. But after I noticed he had a real good knack for math and finance, I asked him to help me with the finance side of business, and he helped me organize and figure out how to run things a little more smoothly.
And what other difficulties may have come to your business during the pandemic?
In about late 2022, our car mover broke. That's the big claw that picks up cars. It was just a motor belt, but it was still $3,000 new, and even in the junk business, you don't buy used items.
What did you do in response to the car mover breaking?
Well, I proposed that we could take out a loan, or if it came down to it, we could try taking out credit cards and doing it all on credit. But Ash had a different idea in mind.
And what idea did he have?
He suggested that Trillium would give us some money, or that we could take it.
What did you interpret this as?
Well, to me, it sounded awesome at first. I thought he meant that they would literally just give us some money, but that was not the case.
Then what was the case?
Ash proposed that he make a fake invoice to make it seem as if they were buying scrap from us, while I made a fake receivable to receive whatever funds we needed for the belt.
Oh, I apologize. And just to clarify, who was it that came up with this idea?
This was Ash's idea.
So, how did Mr. Espinosa actually, quote, get the money from Trillium?
Well, like I said, he created a fake invoice to say that we were selling $3,000 worth of scrap to Trillium, and he asked me to make a fake receivable on my end to actually get the cash.
And this $3,000 went towards the car mover, correct?
Yes.
And how much of this did Mr. Espinosa pay out of pocket for the car mover?
Nothing was paid out of pocket. It was all paid for by the money we took from Trillium.
Did you know of any other embezzlement Mr. Espinosa did after the initial $3,000?
There was a heater that broke that we embezzled additional funds for, but later I noticed that when he bought the Camaro off of me, I wasn't quite sure how he was able to pay for it, so I asked him, and he admitted to continuing to take money from Trillium High School.
You say he bought a Camaro off of you.
Yes.
How much was this Camaro?
I sold it to him for right around $1,000.
And was he able to buy the car?
Yes, and it was strange to me because he was able to pay it off rather quickly too. I think it only took him a couple of weeks.
So do you have any clue as to how Mr. Espinosa could have gotten this money?
Like I said, I asked him about it after he paid off the Camaro as quick as he did, and he admitted to taking additional money from Trillium.
And so, just to clarify, he kept taking money from Trillium after the car mover in the furnace?
Yes, that is correct.
And whose idea was it to continue taking this money from Trillium?
It was Ash's.
When he was taking the money, did he inform you about any of his actions at the time?
Not until I asked directly.
Mr. Diallo, could you please explain to the court who Mr. Bargain Buddy is?
Yes, Bargain Buddy is a criminal that Ash introduced me to. Me and him did get along quite well when I met him, and it was suggested to me that he needed help in a certain field, specifically money laundering.
When Mr. Bargain Buddy was explaining to you, what did he want?
He said that he had a problem, which I assumed because he was talking to me, that it was a problem with a junked car that he needed moved or scrapped. So I asked him, but Ash suggested that it might not be the case.
Did you know this expansion to the business was coming? I'm sorry.
No, this was introduced to me by Ash.
And you didn't come up with this idea.
No, I did not.
Who negotiated how Buddy would repay you and Mr. Espinosa?
Ash told me that he had already negotiated with Buddy for a 20% cut to go to the junkyard.
And this 20% cut would go to both you as well as Mr. Espinosa?
Yes, that's correct.
Did you know where Buddy's money came from?
I didn't really want to know.
And when this business expansion came, did you actively seek out new clients?
I did not seek out new clients myself, but new clients sought me out.
And did Mr. Espinosa ever find out about this?
Yes, he did.
What was his reaction?
All he said to me was to make sure that he got his cut, so I began giving money to him.
Make sure he got his cut. What did you take out of that?
Like I said, I assumed that meant that he wanted his cut of the 20%, that I was charging additional customers, so I began to give him that money.
So, to recap, who brought you the idea for taking money from Trillium?
Ash did.
And did Ash tell you about taking excess money?
No, he did not.
And who brought Bargain Buddy to you?
Ash did.
And who informed you about the possibility of even money laundering?
Ash did.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would the defense care to cross-examine?
It would be my pleasure, Your Honor.
You may proceed when ready.
Hello, Mr. Diallo.
Good afternoon.
It's a beautiful day today, isn't it?
It's a little cold for my taste, but yes.
I'd have to agree. I'm going to ask you a few questions. Just bear with me.
Mr. Urbank, could you pull the mic maybe a little bit closer to you?
This any better?
Yes, thank you.
Ooh. So just to start, Ash worked as the treasurer at Trillium High, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And in your testimony, you say that he always seemed to barely be making it, correct?
Yeah.
Is it true that when he got cut to cut to part-time during COVID?
Yes, he was full-time, became a part-time job.
And you
pull the
say
mic a little
it seemed his situation got even worse once COVID hit, correct?
Yes, because he was moved to a part-time job.
Once he was down to part-time, you offered him a job, right?
Yes, that is correct. I offered him a job at the junkyard.
And he helped improve the accounting side of your business, correct?
Yes, he helped with my finances.
You gave him 20% in your business, if I remember correctly, right?
That was his condition.
he was attempting to gain a stake, right?
That is correct.
You still held 80% of your company, though, correct?
Well, it is my company. But
Of course. So in 2020, a belt for your car mover broke, right?
that is correct.
And it cost $3,000?
For the belt, yes.
You and Ash talked over multiple options to get the money, right?
Yes, that is correct.
And then Ash suggested embezzlement from Trillium, right?
Yes.
And you agreed.
He didn't seem open to very many other options.
And then he did do the embezzlement, correct?
Yes, he embezzled the funds.
It helped you stay open during COVID, considering that you needed to get new parts, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
While things were going back to normal, did it look like his financial situation was getting any better?
Yes, it did.
In your statement, you do not, or you say it seems like he is still.
Counsel, if you're going to introduce statement, please do so properly.
Give me 1 second, Your Honor. Was he always able to make his required payments to the junkyard?
Yes, he was.
During August of 2021, a 1967 Camaro passed through your junkyard, correct?
That is correct.
And you put it up for sale for $1,000.
I believe so, yes.
And he bought it.
Yes, he did.
He bought the car so that him and his kid could work on it, and then eventually he would give it to his kid, right?
That's what he told me.
In your testimony, it says that Ash stopped embezzling funds in December of 2021, correct?
Sounds about right, yes.
A few months later, you were introduced to Bargain Buddy, right?
That is correct.
And Ash knew about Buddy.
Yes,
You did some laundering for Buddy.
that is correct.
Some of Buddy's friends contacted you about laundering as well.
That is correct.
You took 20%, correct?
It's the same percent that Ash suggested I take from Buddy.
Did Ash initially know about these clients?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Did Ash initially know about the clients?
Not beyond Bargain Buddy, no.
You used the money that you gained from these clients for your mortgage and your enjoyment of life, correct?
Could you repeat the latter half of that question?
You used that money that you got for your mortgage and your enjoyment of life, correct?
I wouldn't say enjoyment of life, but yes, I did pay off my mortgage with that money.
You did use that for fancy restaurants and new clothes, correct?
Correct.
Do you remember the total amount of money that you laundered?
I believe all in all, me and Ash had laundered about $80,000, right around there.
You have laundered $400,000.
Grounds?
He was making a statement, Your Honor. He was not asking Mr. Diallo a question.
Sustained. Could you please rephrase that into a question?
You laundered $400,000 in total, correct?
I was not aware that it was that much, but sure.
It says in your statement. Ash's embezzlement only came up to about $80,000, correct?
That's what the court says.
And a lot of this embezzled money went towards the junkyard and payments, correct?
Maybe only a little over $3,000, but
Did Mr. Ash Espinosa pay you junkyard fees? Or fees for his stakeholding?
yes,
Now, Mr. Diallo, you are here on a plea deal, correct?
that is correct.
Your Honor, may I approach Mr. Diallo with Exhibit A?
You may.
Let the record reflect this is an unmarked copy.
Oh, come on. I don't know who raised that kid.
Go through all of the jargon if we're going to do this right.
Thank you, sir.
You have signed this document, correct, Mr. Diallo? Oh, well,
Could
let
you
me first
please
introduce
establish
this.
for the court?
I apologize. What is it that I have brought into your hands?
This is the plea deal agreement that I came to in the Court of Common Pleas in Cardinal County.
You have signed this document, correct?
Yes,
According to this document, you have pled guilty of conspiracy to commit money laundering, correct?
that's what the paper says.
What exactly are the elements of the offense?
Agreement to commit money laundering, that I knew the objective of the agreement, and that I joined the agreement with intent to further its purpose.
Please read point B again.
To be, I knew the objective of the agreement.
Thank you. Now please read the first sentence of the last paragraph of page 1.
Page, which page?
First page.
Defendant understands that a guilty plea is a complete admission of guilt. Defendant further understands that by entering this guilty plea means giving up the following rights.
Now, on the second page, can you please read the paragraph that starts as, defendant further understands that Buckeye Rule of Criminal Procedure
Permits defendant to enter this guilty plea in consideration in exchange for the state dismissing its selection of the remaining charges. Accordingly, in exchange for defendant's guilty plea, the state will dismiss the balance of charges against defendant as described in more detail below.
That is enough of that. Now, it says that it will drop the remaining charges and the balances of those charges, correct?
This is a selection.
Selection. So if Mr. Espinosa loses his trial, he stands to be the one forced to pay back everything, correct?
The remaining amount, yes, not everything.
And if Mr. Espinosa is not viewed to be the conspiracy leader, that may fall on you, correct?
That is correct.
So you stand to benefit financially from this decision here today, correct?
I'd say that both me and Ash do, depending on which way it goes.
Depending on the way it goes. Finally, Mr. Diallo, how much money was laundered through your business again, just to refresh us?
According to your papers, you said 400,000, I believe?
I believe so. And if I remember correctly, Mr. Espinosa only embezzled $80,000 from Trillium High School, correct?
I believe that is correct, yes.
So it seems to me that you benefited more than Mr. Espinosa financially from this, right?
I don't know if I'd say that.
Well,
After all, I did end up paying him part of the 20% cut when he asked for it.
yes, but didn't he also pay junkyard fees to you?
Yes, that was part of the agreement of ownership.
To me, it seems like you benefited more, and quite often the boss benefits more than the subordinate. No further questions, Your Honor.
I'm going to ask the jury to disregard the last statements from the counsel. That was not a question. Counsel, I'm going to put you on warning if you do that again. I'm going to put you on warning if you do that again. You will be held in contempt of court. Thank you.
Oh, of course. Well, I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would you care to redirect this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed when ready. Mr. Diallo wants to know if this is fun or not.
I think it is. I'm enjoying myself.
Mr. Diallo, under cross, I apologize. Mr. Diallo, under cross, you explained that Mr. Espinosa's situation got worse during the pandemic. However, did he take a job with you?
I'm sorry?
Did Mr. Espinosa take a job with you during the pandemic?
Yes, he did.
And how was he paid throughout this job?
I believe he was paid well. Being a 20% owner means that he got a larger percentage of a larger salary than most of my employees.
So just to help out the court, if the junkyard brought in $100, Mr. Espinosa would gain $20 of that, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Who asked you for this 20% cut?
Ash did?
And Mr. Espinosa, on cross, you said that when you were discussing options for the junkyard car mover, that there were lots of options discussed.
Yes, I brought up several.
And who brought up these options?
I brought up credit and loan, and Mr. Espinosa brought up laundering.
And
Or I
what
returned
was,
it.
I apologize, what was Mr. Espinosa's response to your ideas?
He didn't seem too fond of them.
So what did he then suggest?
He suggested that we get money from Trillium High School.
And this was his suggestion?
Yes, that is correct.
Moving on, who contacted you about actually laundering with Bargain Buddy?
Ash introduced me.
And further moving on, did you ever, in your plea agreement, did you ever admit to being a leader?
No, that was not a part of my plea agreement.
However, did you admit to money laundering?
Yes, I admitted to being a participant.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Would you care to recross?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
First up, because it's the best, or the thing I can remember the most, please read out what you are guilty of.
Which one?
What you have been pled guilty to.
Conspiracy to commit money laundering, first degree in violation of Buckeye Revised Code. I understand that this is a first degree felony and that the judge may sentence defendant to a maximum 120 months in prison and a maximum fine $1 million.
sorry, I couldn't hear the first part. What?
Conspiracy to commit money laundering in first degree.
May I see Exhibit A? Do any of y'all have a copy of what? Exhibit A. Okay. Conspiracy to commit money laundering. I completely forgot my argument. Did Ash introduce you to any other of your clients apart from Buddy?
No, not beyond bargain buddy.
You still had to make, or you still had him make payments to the junkyard, correct?
That is part of a 20% ownership, yes.
In your statement, you say he came to you when he stopped his embezzlement and said, I'm not going to be able to make I'm not going to be able to make my full payments, correct?
That is correct, yes.
No further questions.
Thank you. Mr. Diallo, could you return Exhibit A to Mr. Urbank, and you may step down.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Would the prosecution care to call another witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to call Mr. Makani Kikoa to the stand.
Mr. Kikoa. Mr. Kikoa, I remind you, you are under oath, and please do not put on those sunglasses in my courtroom. Thank you.
Thank you.
You may proceed when you're ready.
Could you please introduce yourself to the court?
Hello, I am Makani Kikoa, a detective at the Harmony Police Department, where I specialize in financial crime.
How long have you had that position?
I've held that position for 8 years.
What did you do before that?
Before becoming a detective, I was a patrol officer for 5 years, which is the minimum amount of time required before you could take the examination to become a detective.
What kind of education do you have?
I attended Buckeye University, where I majored in both accounting and criminal justice. After graduating, I both sat and passed for the examination to become a certified public accountant, CPA.
What were some of your experiences as a CPA?
While working as a CPA, I encountered many businesses with some shady practices who seemed to be trying to hide things from the IRS.
What made you want to become a police officer?
Well, I was asked to help review the books of a local company under investigation. That is when I decided to put my degree in criminal justice and my experience as an accountant, as well as my desire to help my community to work.
Just to be clear, you said you've both been a patrol officer and a detective for several years?
Yes, that is correct.
What additional training have you had since becoming a law enforcement officer?
I've had additional training with the FBI, specifically in the area of forensic accounting.
Did you learn a lot from that training?
Well, I learned quite a bit, including I learned how to apply my knowledge of accounting to the world of white-collar crime. I also learned how to reconstruct a paper trail to be used in court.
What's a paper trail?
That is a series of documents that is made to prove a chain of events happened.
Who is the most qualified detective at the Harmony Police Department to investigate financial crimes?
I am.
Your Honor, permission to recognize this witness as an expert in the fields of financial crime and criminal investigation.
Do I have any objections from the defense? Could you again state the field, Mr. Hopkins?
Yes, financial crime and criminal investigation.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Kakoa is recognized as an expert in the field of financial crime and criminal investigation.
Mr. Kakoa, what are some of the main areas of financial crime that you routinely investigate?
Well, I've routinely investigated embezzlement and money laundering, as well as tax fraud and similar offenses.
As an expert, what's the most common method people use to embezzle funds?
Well, usually embezzlement involves a party using company funds to pay off personal debts or fund a lifestyle they cannot afford. And
What about money laundering? What's the typical method for that?
well, a criminal has acquired dirty money, and usually through embezzlement or drug dealing, and they have to clean that money.
What do you mean by clean that money?
Well, the typical method is they run the money through a cash-intensive business, or CIB, and they make it look like the money was paid, the cash was paid for businesses or goods that were never actually sold.
Now to the case at hand. How did you get involved in the Espinosa Diallo case?
Well, I received a call from the Trillium High School, and they informed me that approximately $80,000 had gone missing, and the treasurer, Ash Espinosa, could not explain the missing funds.
Who was your initial suspect?
Well, since the treasurer, Ash Espinosa, could not explain the missing funds, he was naturally the suspect, prime suspect.
What caused you to begin to investigate Diallo's scrap and sale?
Well, I learned about Espinosa's 20% stake in the company, as well as his connection with the founder of the company, Diallo.
Were there any other employees at the business that you spoke to?
Yes, I spoke to Gray Obasanya. He was very cooperative in my investigation, so I did not suspect him initially.
Was there any evidence that you found that pointed to him at all?
None.
What did you find while investigating the junkyard?
Well, I noticed that there were not a lot of cars going in and out of the junkyard, so naturally I suspected that the business was low. However, they remained afloat.
Did you draw any conclusions from that information?
Well, I concluded that Espinoza, with assistance of Diallo, was laundering funds through the scrapyard.
What did you decide to do after coming up with that hypothesis?
Well, I decided to double my efforts in acquiring evidence so as to apply to it for a search warrant.
What did you do to find more evidence?
Well, I not only surveillanced Espinoza at Trillium High School, but also I staked out the junkyard.
Did you learn anything from those stakeouts?
Well, I often heard Espinoza and Diallo discussing what seemed to be a money laundering scheme through my car window.
Where'd they meet that you could hear them through your car windows?
Well, they were meeting at odd hours outside the junkyard.
What you said you heard them discussing. Can you repeat what you heard them discussing?
Well, it seemed to be a money laundering scheme.
Objection, Your Honor.
What are the grounds for your objection?
Hearsay.
Response?
He's just testifying as to what he heard. He's an expert in criminal investigation, so he can testify as to...
I don't think his expertise applies to this. I'm going to sustain that, and I would ask the jury to strike out any knowledge or what they heard about the conversations that he overheard between Mr. Diallo and Mr. Espinosa.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with Exhibit F.
Granted?
Let the record show that I am showing the defense a clean and unmarked copy.
Thank you.
Mr. Kakoa, what is the piece of paper that I just handed to you?
Well, this is an invoice from Diallo's Scrap and Sale to Trillium High School.
What is the amount listed to be paid to the junkyard?
$3,000.
What is Trillium supposedly paying for?
Scrap metal.
Is there anything noteworthy about that?
Well, I find it odd that a high school, would be buying scrap metal, especially for such a high price.
Yeah, that does seem odd. Was there anything else that you noticed that was odd about this transaction?
Well, what else was odd? No.
Were there any VINs, vehicle identification numbers, recorded?
Well, surprisingly, the vehicle VIA was not recorded for this
VIN.
transaction. VIN. VIN.
Did you ever find out who recorded that transaction?
Well, it says it is recorded by Ash Espinoza.
Is there anything odd about that? Like, would Ash normally be the person to record that?
Well, I found it odd that it wasn't recorded by Gray Obasanya, whose normal duty would be to record all the transactions, and Ash Espinoza's duty is not that.
What is written in the line of text near the bottom of the page, directly above where it says, "Thank you for your business"?
If you have any questions concerning this invoice, contact Ash Espinoza.
Whose name is written near the top of the page, underneath the word to?
Ash Espinoza.
Just to clarify, Espinosa's name is listed twice.
That is correct.
Would you be able to tell us why it's listed twice?
Well, Ash Espinoza both paid the invoice through his treasurer job at Trillium High School and received the funds from the invoice.
As an expert in financial crime, what is corporate self-dealing?
Corporate self-dealing is when a member or party uses their access to company funds for their own benefit rather than the benefit of the companies.
In your expert opinion, does that describe what happened here?
Yes, that does.
On the invoice in front of you, is Mr. Harley Diallo's name listed at all?
Nope.
In fact, during your investigation, did you ever suspect Mr. Diallo to be the mastermind behind the crime?
I did not.
As a professional investigator, did you perform a post-arrest interview?
Oh, yes, I did.
Did that tell you anything?
Yes, during my post-arrest interview, my suspicions were confirmed that Espinoza, that Diallo took the fall for Espinoza because Espinoza was a family man.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Would the defense care to cross-examine this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed when ready.
Hi, Mr. Kakoa. How are you today?
Hello, I'm wonderful.
Well, my name is Abby Wall, and I'm going to be asking you a few questions, all right?
Okay,
So, you are a detective at the Harmony Police Department, yes?
that's correct.
And you specialize in white-collar crime, yes?
That's true.
So, addressing your background, you were a patrol officer for 5 years, then took your detective exam, yes?
Yes,
And you call your educational background unique, yes?
yes, that is true.
And this is because you majored in accounting and criminal justice, right?
True.
And then this helped you get your job as a certified public accountant, yes?
Yes, it did.
And you happened to notice that there were some questionable business practices happening?
Yes, there were. I noticed many.
And not only did you study accounting and criminal justice, but you furthered your education through FBI training in forensic accounting.
Yeah,
So, correct me if I'm wrong, it kind of seems that you have better knowledge in the accounting side of things than you do in white-collar crime, yes?
you could say so.
But you are the one who is most qualified to be able to investigate financial crimes, yes?
Yes,
And you've handled many crimes that contain money laundering, embezzlement, and tax fraud?
yeah,
But you say that it all comes down to the fact that people don't really know how to cover up their crimes, and they're incredibly easy to uncover.
yes, many are.
Great, so let's talk about what you know concerning this crime. You were assigned to it in early 2022, yes?
Yes,
And you became aware that exactly $80,000 were missing from Trillium, yes?
yes,
And as you started investigating this, Ash Espinosa became the prime suspect of the case.
correct.
And so you decided it was best to start staking out at the junkyard in March of 2022, correct?
Correct.
And as you continued your search, you became aware that Ash owned 20% of the company while Harley owned 80.
Correct.
Stakeout. Let's talk about that. You said that you would listen to Ash and Harley talking, but they never realized that you were there, correct?
They had not.
And you overheard them talking about a money laundering scheme?
Correct.
And it seemed to you that Espinosa called most of the shots, yes?
That is the way it seemed.
So you base the entirety of your assumptions on a stakeout and conversations you happened to overhear. Yes? Mr. Kakoa, you're aware that Mr. Espinosa majored in business, yes?
I'm aware.
And Ash came to work at Diallo's when his money became cut as the Trillium treasurer, yes?
Yes.
And then he proceeded to help with the finances.
Correct.
And remind me, Harley doesn't have a degree in business. In fact, he doesn't have a degree at all, does he?
Not that I'm aware of.
And wasn't it Harley who gave 20% of the company to Ash, even though he clearly stated he couldn't afford it?
Yes.
And even Harley left him under the impression that he didn't even have to pay him back, yes?
Yes.
So shortly after that, in April of 2022, you overheard that Harley and Ash were talking to Bargain Buddy, yes?
Yes.
And Bargain Buddy happens to be a known criminal.
That's correct.
And you said that it seemed like Diallo introduced Buddy to Espinosa, yes?
Yes.
So Diallo has connections with criminals, particularly on the money laundering side of things?
Seemed that way.
So wouldn't this further prove Diallo's criminal actions?
Objection, Your Honor. Grounds, Mr. Hopkins?
We are not here today to prove guilt or innocence. Both the plaintiff and the defendant have already submitted a plea of guilty into the record.
Response?
Well, we are not here to prove guilt. We are here to prove if he's the ringleader or not. And showing that he has connections to criminals can show that he knows how to interact to be somebody who is a leader, who is connected with these people.
In response, Mr. Hopkins?
Again, that has nothing to do with why we're here. His alleged connections with known criminals has nothing to do with the case at hand.
I'm going to overrule for the time being and see where this goes, but Ms. Waugh, I ask you to draw that together, otherwise I will reconsider.
So tell me if this story sounds right to you. Espinosa asked if him and Diallo could help Buddy. Buddy needed help cleaning some cash. Espinosa knew what he meant, nodded, asked Diallo what he thought, and Diallo said, for a price, we can make that happen. Yes?
Sounds correct.
So Diallo was willing to help a criminal in a money laundering scheme if he got money in return for his business. Yes?
That is correct.
And remind me, you stated that when you first staked out at the junkyard, there wasn't as much traffic, but then after their interaction, it got busier.
That is correct.
So let's shift our attention to the Camaro for a little bit. You noticed it when you were first staked out at the junkyard, yes?
Yes.
And you looked at some records and found that Ash had bought it in 2021?
Objection, Your Honor. This has nothing to do with the cross on the record.
We are, just since I already heard you, we are still in cross-examination, so you're objecting to scope, which does not apply. She can ask whatever she would like in the cross-examination. Yeah. You may continue, counsel.
And you noticed that there were parts bought, but they only totaled up to about $5,000, yes?
Yes.
And since there were parts bought, I'm sorry, let me back up a question. You never saw the Camaro optional, yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
But since they bought parts for it, we can infer that the car had probably been worked on, yes?
Yes.
And didn't even Harley state that the car was drivable, yes?
He did.
So after all of your staking out for a few months and listening in on conversations, you got a warrant so you could truly go in and search the junkyard, correct?
I did.
And then Harley and Oakley, who's Ash's son, were there, correct?
Yes.
And they wanted Ash present, but you put the warrant into effect with him and said something along the lines of, I don't wait for anyone.
Yes.
And with that warrant, you proceeded to take financial books, records, and the Camaro?
Correct.
And then you carefully seized the Camaro with you and your vehicle specialist, Shiloh. You said that Shiloh's specialty was in locating hidden compartments where criminals hide contraband, yes?
Yes.
But he's not a specialist in the fact that he knows pricing on cars, correct?
Correct.
You two just happened to look at the parts and came to the conclusion that it wasn't able to operate.
Correct.
And you personally estimated the value to be about $10,000.
Correct.
But you personally did not take the time to actually find out the true value of this car, yes?
Yes.
But even Harley said it was drivable, and he knows cars, yeah?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Ash and Harley being in court. In your sworn statement, you said that you didn't think Harley was the mastermind, but you still proceeded to charge him, yes?
Yes.
And Harley wasn't even willing to talk about what happened because of his relationship with Ash and Oakley, correct?
That's correct.
But after some mild convincing through the prosecution of Ash's offenses, he ended up giving in? Correct?
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Would the state care to redirect this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed when ready.
Mr. Kakoa, what are you declared as an expert in?
You repeat that?
What are you declared as an expert in?
Financial crime.
So it has nothing to do with auto certification, correct?
That is correct.
It has nothing to do with appraisals?
Nothing.
Okay. You were asked multiple times on cross about your expertise in white-collar crime. Are you declared as an expert in white-collar crime or financial crime?
Financial crime.
Thank you. You proceeded to do a very thorough investigation, did you not? It lasted for several months, correct?
That's correct.
You completed interviews, correct?
Correct.
You did a stakeout, correct?
Correct.
So that would you say that that counts as a thorough investigation, a very legal investigation?
I would.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Would you care to recross this witness? Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
Mr. Kakoa, the prosecution makes it known that you are not specialized in auto appraisal, correct?
Correct.
But wouldn't it make sense, because you are not experienced in auto appraisal, to go to somebody who is to get the true value of this Camaro?
I suppose if time were not a concern.
And in your sworn statement, you say that you specialize in white-collar crime, not financial crime, correct?
Correct.
And then the prosecution says that you conducted interviews. Did you happen to conduct interviews with Ash or Harley before you actually went and talked to them for the first time on August 12th of 2022?
No, I did not want to arouse suspicion.
So you just stayed in the car and made all your assumptions from there?
That can be said.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Could you please return the exhibit, Mr. Kakoa, and you may step down. Would the state care to call any more witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. We call Ray Obisanya to the stand.
Mr. Obasani, to stand, please. I remind you, Mr. Obasani, you are under oath and very sharply dressed. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Obisanya. I'd like to thank you for being here today.
Mr. Lozier, could you raise the microphone a little, please?
Hello.
There we go.
Good morning, Mr. Obisanya. I'd like to thank you for being here today. Your time is very valuable. Could you please introduce yourself to the court?
Yes, my name is Gray Obisanya. I am now the current leader of the junkyard that is being discussed in this case.
What was your previous connection to the junkyard?
Well, I was employed there for 20 years. Coming out of high school, I was employed there.
What kind of jobs did you do at this junkyard?
Well, I kind of looked at the parts that came in and I valued the parts, most like price range valuing. And then I also worked in the financial aspect of the business.
Could you explain the financial part of the business to me?
Yes, bookkeeping mostly, just keeping in, tracking, writing down what money was used.
How was business at the junkyard?
Well, it was good. It was going good. It was a great business up until COVID of 2020. That's when we brought in Ash for help.
What did Ash do at the junkyard?
Well, Ash, initially, he would look at parts and tell us if it was salvageable, used, pretty much if it was useful for a car.
What was it like after Ash got his 20% stake in the company?
Well, to be quite honest, it was kind of annoying because he was always flashing around his fancy degree, and he was always, breathing on my neck about the financial records since he had a degree in financial.
So what was working for Harley like before Ash?
Well, Harley, in my opinion, Harley's a great employer, and from the 20 years that I worked there, we never really had problems. We really got along for those 20 years.
How is your relationship with Harley Diallo now?
Still the same, I like Harley. I know that what he did was wrong, but I think Harley's a great guy.
So how do you feel about Ash now?
Well, I still feel he's kind of shady, honestly. Things that I always thought he was shady, and I still think he is.
And his son Oakley, how do you feel about him?
I think Oakley's a great kid. I think he has a bright future, but it kind of sucks that he was put into these circumstances.
So what is your knowledge on the embezzlement and the laundering?
During the embezzling and the money laundering, I had no idea what was going on.
Were you surprised to see Harley involved in this?
Very, actually. This is out of Harley's nature, out of his character. Working there for 20 years, it's never been seen from his character, to be honest.
Let's move on to a brighter note. You talking about in your testimony how you spent a lot of time around cars. Could you please explain that?
Yes. Well, since I was a kid, my family was always around cars. We love cars, my aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, my parents. And so my uncle, who would judge at classic car shows, he would have me tag along with him and to kind of taught me the ropes.
Where did you go for these car shows?
Well, because we didn't really have a lot of money, we kind of stayed in the Buckeye area, so we became very, reliable judges in the Buckeye area.
You said you were reliable in the area?
Yes, others would consider.
What did you do at these car shows? Could you please just reiterate?
We would judge classic cars.
You said classic cars?
Yes, classic cars.
Did you have any certification to do so?
Yes, I am CCCA certified.
That means, just to clarify, that you've passed the accredited judges quiz for that?
Yes, correct.
And you said this was classic cars, correct?
Classic cars.
Your Honor, can I have permission to approach the witness with Exhibit C?
You may.
Let the record reflect this is a clear and unmarked copy. Could you please explain to the court what you have in your hands?
Yes, this is my resume.
Could you please read off the job titles and the years that you worked?
Yes, so I am now a junkyard owner of Obasanya's Car Salvage Yard, and that started around January 2023 up until now. And I'm also, it says here, office manager and bookkeeper of Diallo Scrap and Sale. Started in March 2002 and ended around August 2022.
Could you please also read the education to the court?
Yes. So I graduated from high school, Trillium High School. Graduated there with my high school diploma, and as well as graduated from career technical training.
And then could you please read the last 2 points of your resume?
Yes, under my skills category, it says basic automotive repair and auto appraisal.
So just to clarify, you graduated from the technical school.
Could you repeat that?
You graduated from the technical school.
Yes, correct.
Now that we know all of your certifications, could you please explain your uncle's certification?
Yes, my uncle is a certified auto appraiser.
This is a IACP auto appraisal.
Correct.
Could you please explain your relationship with your uncle?
Well, me and my uncle have a really great relationship. As I said, I would tag along with him to judge classic car shows.
What kind of things did he teach you to appraise?
He taught me how to appraise the value of classic cars and their parts.
You said classic cars?
Classic cars.
How often do you judge at these car shows?
Unfortunately, I haven't been able to judge very many because I've been very busy. But before becoming a junkyard owner, I would go all the time, especially in my youth with my uncle.
And just to clarify, these were classic car shows?
Classic car shows.
So these are the type of cars that your uncle had taught you to appraise, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, I would like permission to declare Mr. Obisanya as an expert in the field of judging classic cars and in the expert of praising classic cars.
One moment, please. One moment, please. Go ahead, Ms. Pierre.
The defense finds that due to his lack of education and certification, while he can testify, there's not enough evidence to classify Mr. Obisanya as an expert witness. Being taught by your uncle doesn't mean that you can be an expert witness.
Response.
Although I will agree that in the field of appraising classic cars, he doesn't have certification, he does have in judging, and he's judged multiple car shows and has become reliable in the area. I think that declares him an expert in this field, at least in judging.
I'm going to sustain the objection. I will, however, allow Mr. Obisanya to give his opinion on some matters that seem relevant. However, the court does not recognize him as an expert.
Would that make him knowledgeable then?
That's for you to establish, sir.
Could you please explain in your judging certification how you judge cars?
Yes, there's a category from 1 to 6, 1 being the absolute best and 6 being the worst.
And then there is a total of 20 sections that scale from 1 to 5 points, correct?
Yes, there's 20 areas where we would use to judge a car.
Did you ever get to inspect Ash's car before it was impounded?
Yes, I inspected it 2 days before it was confiscated by the police.
So what would you judge as Ash's car right before it was brought into police custody?
Could you repeat the question?
What would you judge the car at? Like, what category would you put it in before it was brought into police custody?
Yes, after inspecting it, I would judge it a category 4 car, maybe close to a 5.
Could you please explain why to the court?
Yes, so a category 4 car is a car that basically, it runs, but it has little to no OEM parts, as well as it has bubbling in the paint and exterior, like very visible, how could I say this? Very visible mistakes in the repair job.
Could you explain OEM parts to the court?
Yes, so an OEM part is a part that looks and behaves the exact same to a classic car part in this case, but it is not made by the same manufacturer.
You said that a Category 4 car will have these parts missing or incorrect parts put in place, correct?
Yes, OEM parts are aftermarket parts. They would be little to none.
You also said that they would have bubbled paint jobs, correct?
Correct.
So mistakes in the paint jobs?
Correct.
And you said that this is what Ash's car estate was in.
Yes.
With your experience working at estates and judging classic car shows, what is worth more, the OEM parts or the non-OEM part cars?
It would be cars with OEM parts.
And how much do you think that this car was truly worth?
Although I can't give a full or exact estimate, I would say it's honestly not worth the $80,000 that Ash is saying it is.
What would make this car raise in its grading, therefore raise its value?
I would say it would have to be professionally done by a professional mechanic, someone who is certified in the area of mechanic. And it would have to be completely stripped down and redone by a professional, as well as a professional paint job.
You said done by a professional mechanic, correct?
Yes, a professional.
Do you know what mechanic did work on this car?
I believe it was Presley Aoki, as he's not certified in mechanic.
So there's no way this car is worth above what it was sold for?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would you care to cross-examine this witness? Yes. You may proceed.
Mr. Obasanya, my name's Maddie, and I'll be asking you a few questions about your experience.
Ms. Pierre, if you could pull the mic a little closer for you.
About your experience with cars. So, are you an IACP certified auto appraiser?
No, I'm a CCCA certified auto appraiser.
That's Classic Car Club of America, correct?
Correct.
Are you a master judge in that?
Some will say yes.
Okay, because in your sworn testimony, you say that you're not a master judge because you didn't take that certification test.
As well as I didn't take the test, but I do have the experience for it.
Okay, so again, are you a master judge?
No.
Okay. You talk about aftermarket parts on the cars. Would you say that all aftermarket parts decrease the value of a car?
I wouldn't say all aftermarket parts.
In general, would you say that aftermarket parts decrease the value of a car?
Some, yes.
Are you aware that there are designers that sell cars completely made of aftermarket parts for hundreds of thousands of dollars?
I'm aware.
Are you aware that are you aware of the aftermarket car part show in Vegas called SEMA that brought in $256 million last year on only aftermarket parts?
Could you repeat that?
Are you aware of the aftermarket cart show in Vegas called SEMA that brought in $256 million last year on only aftermarket parts?
I was not aware.
Don't you think that someone with lots of experience dealing with those parts would be aware of those things?
Well, considering that I didn't have enough money to travel far, mostly I'm more certified in the Buckeye area.
Okay. You don't like Ash, do you?
I wouldn't really say that I don't like him, but like I said, I see him very shady. So in some areas, I wouldn't trust him.
Right. On line 58 of your sworn testimony, you say he's annoying to say the least.
He was annoying.
Okay.
Yes.
So it bothered you that Ash got 20% stake in the company after working there much shorter than you when you were there for 20 years, like you said?
Well, yes, considering, but he's also Harley's cousin.
So wouldn't you think it would be a good idea for a neutral party to be an appraiser for a car and not someone who may have an unfair bias against the people who work there and own the car?
Well, then again, he is Harley's cousin.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
He is Harley's cousin, so that's...
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would you care to redirect this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed. Don't Mr. Daniel that step.
Hello, once again, Mr. Obisanya. In cross, we just heard that you declare that some aftermarket parts don't depreciate the value of the car. Are OEM parts aftermarket?
No, they're not.
But they're made not in the same factory, are they?
Correct.
And they said that earlier that there's cars that don't use OEM parts or original parts that draw in millions of dollars in other areas. Was the point of Ash's car supposed to be restoration?
You could say so, but the main objective, from what I know, was just to give it to his son. Wasn't to become a number one car, category 1 car.
The cars in these shows that don't use original parts are usually all custom, different kinds of vehicles that are intended not to have these OEM parts, correct?
Could you elaborate?
These cars are custom made to be way different than the original. They're not a restoration, correct?
Correct.
That wasn't the goal that Ash Espinosa was going for with his Camaro, correct?
What I believe so, yes.
He was going for a complete restoration of what a 67 would have looked like at the time.
Yeah, correct.
You said in your testimony that he went for the...
Sorry, counsel, objection.
Speculation. He's saying that his...
Sustained. I remind you, the witness can't testify to somebody else's state of mind. Thank you.
You said in your testimony that he went for a orange peel paint job, correct?
Correct.
That was the original paint job on the car, correct?
Correct.
They said that you don't like Ash, correct?
That's what they said.
You said that he kept breathing down your neck on the job, correct?
Yes, on my financial area.
Which hindered doing your job, correct?
Correct.
Could you please read from your resume the first 4 points from the bookkeeping section?
From where?
The bookkeeping section, your second job?
Yes, it says manage bookkeeping and financial record keeping tasks, accurately recording all transactions and expenses, handle accounts receivable and payable, maintaining accurate records and effectively communicating with vendors and clients, produce regular financial reports and summaries for management, contributing to informed decision-making, coordinated administrative tasks, including answering phone calls, responding to emails, and maintaining organized filing systems.
So your job was to respond to emails and work with the invoices, correct?
Correct.
Your Honor, permission to approach the witness with Exhibit G?
You cannot introduce a new exhibit in redirect.
You claim in your testimony that you had no knowledge of the embezzlement and laundering, correct?
Correct.
So that would mean that you did not create any of the invoices, correct?
Correct.
Did Ash create any of the invoices?
From what I know, yes.
In order to complete the money laundering, if you had no knowledge, then Ash would have had to create these, would he not?
Could you restate the question?
Yes, please, because it's leading.
Okay. Was that part of, your job was to respond to emails and create invoices, correct?
Correct.
That is still leading. What was your job to do?
My job was to look at parts that came into the junkyard and evaluate them and value their cost.
What was, oh, sorry, go ahead and complete.
And also financial bookkeeping.
What was Ash's job to do?
Ash's job at first was to look at parts and see if they were salvageable, and after gaining his 20%, he kind of took over financial records.
So the same job as you, almost.
Yes.
And in companies, to increase performance, multiple people have to work the same job, correct?
Correct.
So this means that,
Sustained, that was a leading question. Please strike it from the record.
no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would you care to recross? I remind you that your questions must be within the scope of what just happened.
Prosecution was asking about your job and what your job was at the junkyard. Didn't you say in your original direct that you were also involved in bookkeeping?
Yes.
So then wouldn't you have some idea about what was financially going on in the junkyard if you said yourself your job was involved with the bookkeeping?
Well, like I said, after Ash got his 20%, he sort of took over and was breathing down my neck. So he kind of pushed me away from the financial records.
So did that cause any So after that happened, that changed your opinion on Ash?
What do you mean?
After you said he was breathing down your neck,
Correct.
so that made you resent him a little bit?
I wouldn't say resent. I just found what he was doing, which was trying to take over my job, was annoying.
Okay. So then, again, wouldn't you say that it would be better to have an unbiased, unrelated person to appraise the car and not someone who works with him?
I'm confused by that question. I don't understand what you mean.
Would you say that it's better to have someone appraise or value the car who doesn't work with the defendant?
I mean, if you're certified, you're certified.
Okay, no further questions.
You may step down. Does the state care to call any more witnesses?
Prosecution, the state of Buckeye rests its case.
Thank you. Would the defense care to make a case?
Yes, gentlemen, we would like to call our first witness, Oakley Gale, to the stand.
Mr. Gale? Nice shirt. Mr. Gale, I remind you, you are under oath.
Hi, Mr. Gale. Thank you for being here today. Please go ahead and introduce yourself to the jury.
Order in the court, please.
My name is Oakley Gale, and I am the son of Ash Espinosa.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm 18 years old. I currently attend Trillium High School in a dual vocational program for auto mechanics. I love cars, and through my studies, I've learned a lot about them. And I'm also really close to my family, especially my cousin Harley Diallo.
Can you please describe your relationship with Harley Diallo?
My relationship with Harley is strong. You know, he's always been someone I've looked up to, and ever since I was young, you know, he'd take me out to places and get me out of the house. And as I got older, it started, you know, he didn't really care about the place. No, he'd take me anywhere, no matter the cost.
You say no matter the cost. What do you mean by that?
Sometimes I wanted to go somewhere expensive, and he'd take me there, and also tip very generously wherever we went.
So, how did the pandemic affect your family?
It definitely affected us financially. You know, my dad's job got cut to part-time, and as a result of that, he had to take a couple shifts at the junkyard, which even then was a little shaky because at the time the junkyard was also struggling.
So, how did COVID affect the rest of your family, maybe like your mom?
Yeah, my mom lost her job, and like I said, Dad got cut to part-time, and as a result, both were at home a lot more.
So, you say that Ash was home a lot more because his job was cut down. What did your relationship look like with Ash?
My relationship with Ash has never been the best. I love him, of course, but, you know, sometimes he just feels like a little bit of a dictator at home. And what I mean by that is we never seem to see eye to eye. You know, he wanted me to go to college. I never really saw the point.
Objection, Your Honor.
Grounds counsel?
The witness is giving a narrative answer.
Overruled.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about your relationship with Ash?
I think I covered it pretty good.
Okay, so let's talk about your schooling a little bit. You mentioned that you really like cars and that you're even at a dual vocational tech program for cars. What happens to be your favorite?
A 1967 Chevy Camaro.
So, generally, how much does an operational Chevy Camaro, 1967 Chevy Camaro cost?
I would say between 50 and 90 grand.
And were you ever able to get a Camaro?
I did actually. I never thought I'd be able to get one until I was as successful as Harley, but I'm really glad I was wrong.
So, it was bought, correct?
Yes.
And how much was paid for it?
About $1 grand.
And why was the Camaro purchased?
Ash bought it as a gift for me.
And was it in your name?
Unfortunately, no.
Why not?
Well, it was supposed to be transferred to my name on my 18th birthday
But why was it never gifted and put in your name?
because of all the events that went down in August of 2022.
And clarify for me, just to clarify, you said that a fixed classic Camaro would cost anywhere between $50,000 and $90,000.
Yes.
So what happened after the Camaro was bought?
Ash bought it, and Ash bought it, and we started working on it as a project together to fix up and restore.
And how long were you and Ash working on it together?
A long time, over the span of almost 2 years.
And how much money did you personally put into it?
I personally put $5 grand of my own money into it, and Ash also helped me get some parts.
And how much time would you say you spent in a week on it?
I wouldn't be able to give you an exact amount. I mean, I spent a long time every week.
So in restoring a car, does it cost more for the labor or more for the parts?
Oh, labor, definitely.
Great. So you said that you were working on this car with Ash for about 2 years. How did spending this much time with Ash, like working on this, how did that impact your relationship?
It definitely strengthened it.
And how was it strengthened?
Well, you know, Ash was busy on the weeks, he had work, but on the weekends, we spent a lot of time together. And eventually, Ash started to open up to me about his childhood, high school, college days, and I got to learn a lot more about him.
Why did he tell you all of this?
Wanted to make sure I had a better childhood than he did,
And why did he want you to have a better childhood?
because he really loved me and wanted what's best for me.
Great. So let's shift back to the Camaro a little bit. Where exactly did you happen to work on the Camaro?
In the junkyard,
Was there like an indoor space to work on it, or did you work outside?
outside.
And then was there an indoor space for people to come into, or were they just outside as well?
Everyone was outside. That's where all business took place, and yeah, we shared the same space. People can talk a lot.
So did you ever happen to witness a conversation between Ash, Harley, and Bargain Buddy?
Yes, I did.
And did you happen to hear anything out of the ordinary?
Well, I was working on my Camaro, so I couldn't really hear or see very well.
And what happened after this conversation?
I was able to see Ash get really angry, you know. He stormed into the office. There was a ton of slamming doors, screaming, yelling, and I was too scared to ask him what happened.
So why was he so angry? Why was Ash so angry?
I asked Harley about it, and he said that they were just disagreeing about how to make the junkyard money, which I don't know if I can trust that answer or not.
So you never really got a clear answer, did you?
I did not.
Okay. So let's jump forward to the events on August 12th, 2022. What happened that day?
That was the day everything went downhill, and unfortunately it all happened on my birthday.
What happened on your birthday?
Well, it started out as a normal day. Went to school. Afterwards, swung by the junkyard. Harley was there. Got a gift for me, which was really nice of him. And started working on my Camaro. And about a half hour later, the cops showed up.
Why were the cops there?
I wasn't able to hear. All I saw was Harley looking anxious, and he was asking the cops a lot of questions. And it was,
Grounds, Mr. Hopkins.
On the grounds of speculation, he's saying that Mr. Diallo looked anxious. He cannot testify as to Mr. Diallo's state of mind.
Sustained. We'll strike your remarks from the record.
So let me ask again. Why were the police at the junkyard?
like I said, I couldn't really hear very well. I just saw Harley asking him a lot of questions. And it was at that point I decided to text Ash because he wasn't there and I was nervous.
And what happened after you texted Ash?
I went over to Harley to tell him that he was on his way, and one cop, Mekani Kakoa, said something along the lines of, they aren't waiting for him. And they even said that they would take my Camaro.
What does your car, your Camaro, mean specifically to you?
It means so much to me, you know, a lot of hard work, dedication, so many hours, and, so much work restoring its value to what I believe could be at least 80 grand or more. And it also represents how I bonded with my dad, and the fact that I don't have it and don't have access to those memories is devastating.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Would the state care to cross-examine this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may.
Permission to proceed?
Whenever you're ready, sir.
Mr. Gale, you're a student at Trillium High School, correct?
Yes,
And you studied in the auto mechanic program, right?
that's right.
Would you say you know a lot about cars?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So tell me, on your 16th birthday, what did you receive from Ash? Or what did Ash buy?
He bought the 1967 Chevy Camaro.
just a little bit ago, while you were on direct exam, the defense called it your car several times. Is that correct?
It was bought for me, yes.
Who paid the money? Who bought that car?
Ash did.
In your statement and then previously, you said Ash was going to legally put it in your name, right? He was going to give it to you?
He was going to give it to me on my 18th birthday, yes.
But it wasn't in your name at that point, right?
Fortunately, no.
Was Ash ever able to legally transfer the car to your name?
He was not because of all the events that have led up to today.
Let's skip forward a bit to those events that you just mentioned. You remember when the police showed up at the junkyard, right?
I do.
Yeah, I mean, who could forget something like that? In your sworn statement, you said that you told Detective Kakoa that, and I quote, Ash owned Camila, end quote. Who or what is Camila?
Camila is the name we gave the Camaro.
So you specifically told the police that Ash owned the 67 Camaro that was seized from the junkyard?
It's in his name.
A yes or no will suffice.
Yes.
When Kakoa asked specifically if Ash owned the car, he said, and I quote, Ash owns this. Did you say yes or no?
I said it was technically his because it was in
A
his
yes
name.
or no will suffice.
Yes.
Whose name was on the title at the time of its seizure?
Sorry, repeat the question?
Whose name was it on the whose name was on the title of the car at the time of its seizure?
Ash.
Earlier today, you heard a witness who works as a classic car judge testify as to the value of the Camaro. His name was Gray Obasanya. You heard that, right?
I do.
You heard him testify that your car was not fixed up with OEM parts, correct?
I did hear him say that.
You heard him testify that the Camaro is not worth anywhere near $80,000 in his opinion, in his knowledgeable opinion, excuse me. Correct?
Yes, I heard him say that.
Have you driven that car?
No.
In your testimony, you stated that you've driven it several times and that it was nice to finally have a car you could drive rather than having to rely on Ash's schedule to take his car.
That's right, yes.
I'm going to ask the state to make sure they phrase that in a question, please.
Did you say that?
I did say that.
Thank you.
Are you aware that cars and parts lose value the moment they're driven?
I'm aware.
How much did Ash buy the car for?
$1,000.
You said you spent around $5,000 of your own money on it.
I did say that.
You said Ash spent some of his money to buy a couple of parts, correct?
That is true.
Did that total amount to anywhere near $80,000?
For money for the parts?
Yeah, or just in general, including basically all costs of the car.
No.
No? Okay. Just a little bit earlier, you were asked if it costs more for labor or for the parts. You said labor, right?
I did say that.
Professional labor or unskilled labor?
Repeat the question?
Would it cost more for professional labor or unskilled labor?
What do you define as unskilled labor?
Someone who's not certified as a mechanic, for example.
Then definitely professional.
You said you worked on it outside, right?
That is true.
And that's how you overheard some conversations, or even you just saw Ash storming out of the building?
Yes.
So the car was exposed to the elements?
It was outside.
Simply yes or no will suffice. It was exposed to the elements?
While we were working on it, yes.
Yes or no, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Why are you here today?
I'm here to give my view on the events that have transpired.
Would you gain anything from winning this case?
I would.
Would you get the Camaro back, say, if you won?
It would still be in Ash's name, but it would not be taken away.
Yeah. What did you say earlier that you thought the 67 Camaro was worth?
I said 80 grand.
Okay. Do you remember giving a sworn statement ahead of this trial?
I do.
In that statement, you said Ash wasn't paid very much. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, his job never paid a lot.
Do you recall stating that you were surprised when Ash bought the car?
I was, because we
A
joked
simple
about
yes
it.
or no will suffice.
Yes.
Do you remember saying a couple of lines earlier, Ash and I joked that, and I quote, Ash and I joked that if we could afford it, we would buy the Camaro together and fix it up, end quote?
I do remember saying that, yes.
So you didn't think that Ash could have afforded the Camaro?
I just didn't think he'd actually buy it.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I just didn't think he would actually buy it.
That's not what you said. You specifically said, and I quote, if we could afford it. Does, correct me if I'm wrong, does that imply that you didn't think he could afford it?
Because of the financial
Simply
issues.
yes or no will suffice.
Yes.
So why are you here today if you really don't know where the money would have come from for the expensive repairs, not only to pay for this junked car, but also new and used cars? Why are you here today?
Like I said, to give my testimony on the events that transpired and to, yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. I'd like to take this moment to admonish the representatives from the state to contain their emotions and not attempt to communicate with attorneys or witnesses in any way, or I will have to declare a mistrial. Thank you. Would you care to redirect this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed.
Oakley, this car was not in your name, but it was still considered your car.
Could you please rephrase the question for the witness?
Sorry, I was thinking about it. Do you know that if it's possible to have a car in your name by yourself before you are 18?
No.
What exactly do you have to do? Do you know?
Repeat the question, please.
Do you know what exactly you have to do to get a car in your name before you turn 18?
I don't.
To make it clear, you need to be able to sign. You can co-sign with a parent. What is your opinion?
I'm going to ask that last remark be stricken from the record as it was not a question.
I'm sorry?
Your last remark was not a question, so I'm asking it stricken for the record, and I'm giving you a warning.
I'm going to withdraw that. So, Oakley, do you think that you can own something and someone can still pay for it?
Yeah, I would say that.
And do you think that's what Ash did for you?
Yeah, he was temporarily holding it before I could legally be an age to own it.
And so, in the cross, the prosecution said that, I don't remember the exact phrasing, but the prosecution said that even after a long time of work on this car, that it was still not operational. But could you please remind me how long you worked on it for with Ash?
Over a span of 2 years.
2 years. And then you also go to school for cars, correct?
Yes, I'm enlisted.
Please do not lead the witness anymore.
I apologize. So, the prosecution said that they asked you if you get a chance to drive your car. Was your car still in the works by the time it was arrested?
Yes.
And so, because you were still working, so clarify for me, it was still in the works when it was seized, so you do not get a chance to drive it.
The car wasn't finished, but
So, the prosecution also asked you about, when I asked about what costs more, labor or parts. And then they asked you which costs more, unskilled or professional. You are not a professional in any way, is that yes?
I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. You're continuing to violate proper procedures, so I'm going to ask you to refrain. Please step down. Would you care to recross this witness? No, Your Honor. You may step down. Thank you, Mr. Gale. Would the defense care to call another witness?
Yes, we would like to call Presley Aoki to the stand.
Mr. Aoki, I remind you are under oath.
Good morning, Mr. Aoki. Please state your name for the court and why you are here.
My name is Presley Aoki, and I'm a certified car appraiser.
May I approach the witness
For what reason?
with Exhibit D?
You may.
Let the record show that this is a clean and unmarked copy. What do you have in your hand?
This is my resume and my experience in the field.
Can you explain to us a little bit about what it is or what is on your resume and what you do?
It talks about my certification as a IACP as part of the Certified Auto Appraiser program, and my experience over the years and all my skills and everything that's involved in my resume.
What education do you have for what you do?
I'm a certified auto appraiser of the IACP, and I studied it in college for a bit too.
How long have you been in this field?
24 years.
And where do you currently work?
I'm an owner and sole employee for myself, and I'm just hired by different people lots of times to do different lots of cases.
Have you had any prior experience testifying in court cases?
Yes.
About how many court cases?
I've done lots of court cases, a lot of different ones. There's been one that was a little iffy, and a lot of things got heated into it, and a lot of things happened, but
What happened in that case?
I just felt very targeted by the other attorney, and a lot of things just got heated. It was really personal, and I got targeted really personally, and there was nothing in that case that, other than that, that went wrong. And
Okay, so just to clarify, they came at you personally in an inappropriate way?
yes,
Was your knowledge ever questioned in this case?
no,
Were the numbers that you gave ever questioned or proven to be wrong in that case?
no, exact same as the other appraiser.
Okay. Your Honor, with the extensive experience and education that this witness has had, we would like to establish Mr. Aoki as an expert witness in the field of car appraisal.
Any objection, State?
Yes, Your Honor. As stated earlier, if Mr. Obisanya was not declared an expert due to not outstanding education, then I don't believe that this should be either. He does have experience in this, but he doesn't have a college degree or anything in this, just a certification, just like my witness, Mr. Obisanya, was.
I'm going to sustain your objection based upon I do not feel that counsel has laid proper groundwork, but I will give you the opportunity to expound upon his experience and then ask again if you so choose. So, Ms. Pierre, I am again giving you the opportunity to dig a little deeper into Mr. Aoki's experience, and then you may ask again if you so choose.
Okay, then let's go back to your resume, if you still have that there. What prior experience do you have even before your certification that in car appraisal and working with cars in general?
I grew up always just doing stuff with cars and always around cars, working on them and stuff. And then I also went to college for around 3 years to study, and I just dropped out because I wanted to
do my own thing and start making money because I just thought that was a better option, and I already knew everything I could, and I already was part of the Certified Auto Appraiser program.
Okay, and then where did you say that you currently work again?
For myself.
Okay. And again, how long have you been in this field?
24 years.
So you've seen a lot of different cars and worked with a lot of different
Yes.
types.
I've worked with plenty of other cars and plenty of different cases and seen lots of things.
You may ask again if you'd like now, Ms. Pierre.
Your Honor, with this extensive experience and education that this witness has, we would like to establish Mr. Aoki as an expert witness in the field of car appraisal.
Does the state have any objections?
Once again, his previous experience does not declare him as an expert because he doesn't show anything that proves him to be above anybody else in the field. He just has the standard auto approval that everybody can get in that field.
I'm going to overrule. I believe that sufficient groundwork has been laid to define Mr. Aoki as an expert in the field of car appraisal. You may continue. Let the record reflect.
How did you become involved in this case?
Ash's attorney hired me to come and check the case out in the car especially.
Do you, or would you say you have a thorough understanding of the car itself and its owners?
Yes.
Can you walk us through the steps that you went through in this appraisal?
Ash's attorney hired me, and then I came to interview with Ash and Oakley, and we talked about the car, and I very extensively went out to the car and looked through the exterior, the interior, and everything, and then that was just the beginning groundwork, and I got a lot more work in after that.
So about how long did you work on this case?
About 38 hours.
Why would it take so long to appraise a car?
Well, you want to make sure you get it properly done right, and you get the right value, and you're doing a good job, and you make sure that car is set at the value it's supposed to be.
So because of the extensive time and effort you put into appraising this car, in your expert opinion, about how much do you think this car is worth?
Around 83 grand, and I would say it could be even more. That's a little bit conservative, depending on certain things that come with it and the people who buy it and want it and the rarity.
And why do you believe that it's worth that much?
Well, there was around 35,000 of these 1967 Camaros made, but only one out of 1,100 was made with this type of engine, and so that's what makes this really rare.
Are you aware that this Camaro started its rehabilitation at a junkyard?
Yes.
Do you think this has any effect on its value?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would the state care to cross-examine this witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may.
Hello, Mr. Aoki. How are you today?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm here to ask you a couple questions. Is that fine with you?
Yeah.
You're an automobile appraiser, correct?
Yes.
And would you say you're a pretty good one?
I'd say so.
Yeah, you've been doing this for a while. You probably are,
Yeah,
correct?
a little bit.
But despite that you're an auto appraiser, your long background in cars, you're not a certified mechanic, are you?
I am a certified automotive service technician.
But you're not a mechanic.
I'm pretty sure that's the same thing. Service technician is the
Well,
same thing as mechanic.
don't you need an ASE certification?
I am an automotive service technician from the Buckeye State University.
Okay. You do not have a college degree, correct?
No, but I worked in this for about 2 to 3 years. I just wanted to start making my own money.
Yeah, there's no shame in that. I'm not shaming you or anything. You dropped out of college saying, quote, "Before becoming an auto appraiser, I completed some coursework at Buckeye State toward my automotive service technician certificate, but ultimately I decided I'd rather be an auto appraiser," correct?
Yes.
And he actually dropped out of college at Buckeye State, correct?
Yes.
I've heard that you've been practicing for 24 years from the direct, correct?
Yes.
In all your years of appraising, you've only worked at your company, Aoki Auto Appraisals, correct?
Yes.
In all of these years working there, you've never had any other employees, correct?
No.
So you're just a busy man all the time, aren't you?
Yeah. Always dealing with lots of cars.
You've never had a higher up or a boss to breathe over your neck or anything.
It's easier just for me to do it myself.
Sounds like you're living the life, man. So you're in a company, and you ever had anybody to criticize your work or someone to learn from, correct?
Just the people I'm doing it for.
So you've never had a higher up to learn from? No mentor?
God.
Can't argue with that.
You know what Kelley Blue Book is, correct?
Yes.
In your testimony, you talk about that, correct?
A little bit.
Do you know how Kelley Blue Book works?
It's about the value and estimations of cars and other certain things.
And you claim that most of the time this is incorrect.
Can you say it again?
You claim that most of the time this is an incorrect pricing of the car?
Well, it depends on certain cars and what's going on because.
But overall?
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you know how they determine prices?
Can you repeat that?
Do you know how they determine the price of the car in Kelley Blue Book?
No.
Well, a bunch of people come together to determine this price.
Do you have a question?
Yes, sorry, Your Honor, I will pursue. You do your job solo, correct?
Yes.
Kelley Blue Book is a big company, correct?
Yes.
So would you say that Kelley Blue Book probably has multiple people look over other people's work?
Yes.
Oh, so it's you would say that they like average together the price from what everybody thinks?
Yeah.
So you still think that a large company is not as good as appraising automobiles as you?
Just because they have that many people doesn't mean anything.
Just to clarify, you were paid for your testimony in this case, correct?
Yes.
In fact, you received $250 every hour, and you received $5,000 for travel?
Gotta make money somehow.
Sounds like you're making bank there.
Mr. Aoki, well, would you please respond with a definitive answer to the questions? Thank you.
Yes.
Sounds like you're making a lot of money there. That's not a small sum, is it?
Yes.
Despite this pay, you promised to be an unbiased witness?
Yes.
An unbiased witness who inspects both of the sides, correct?
I only need to inspect the car that is put before me.
And to get this full picture, you worked 38 hours in this case, correct?
Yes.
And at $250 an hour for that.
Yep.
And during these, you interviewed Ash Espinoza and Oakley Gale, correct?
Yes.
People who are on the defense with you today, correct?
Yes.
But you never interviewed Harley Diallo, the owner at the time of the junkyard, who owned the automobile previously, correct?
There's no need to interview a person who doesn't own the car.
Did you or did you not?
No.
Okay, thank you for that. In fact, not once in your entire sworn testimony did you mention Harley, the original owner of the car, correct?
No.
Mr. Aoki, this isn't your first court case doing this, correct?
No.
And in the past, things haven't gone so well, have they?
I would say they have.
You don't remember things getting heated when being cross-examined in one of these cases?
There was only one case where I was just felt really.
Could I have a simple yes or no, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. And in this response of this cross-examination, you got very emotional, saying, quote, "He accused me of taking bribes. I am not proud to admit that I got pretty emotional in response," correct?
Yes.
Because the attorney was getting aggressive, when they cross-examined you, you got heated, correct?
Yes, things got heated.
Something that all attorneys do on cross, correct?
Yeah, this was a lot more personal than what an attorney should do.
Mr. Aoki, do you know why I've been so kind to you during this cross?
Why?
Well, you see, you got your testimony thrown out for being emotional towards a lawyer, correct?
No.
No.
None of my testimony was thrown out. None of, yeah.
So your testimony was thrown out for being
Yes.
emotional towards a lawyer, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Aoki, I'm about to ask you questions. I want you to answer yes with a simple yes or a simple no. Are you ready? You don't have a college degree, correct?
Can you repeat that?
You don't have a college degree, correct?
No.
You don't have a service technician certificate. Is this correct or not?
Yes.
Never have you had a boss to learn from or be corrected by, correct?
No.
You've never had employees to collaborate with, correct?
No.
When preparing for this case, you spoke and interviewed specifically and only Oakley and Ash, people on your side of the case, correct?
Yes.
And you didn't speak with Harley.
No need.
You didn't ask his side or anything to do with the car when he owned it at the junkyard.
He didn't own the car at the time when I was brought in the case, so there was no need to interview him.
I had simple yes or no.
No.
You didn't speak with Mr. Obisanya, who is knowledgeable about the field of classic cars. You didn't consult anybody else in this case.
He's not an expert.
And on top of all this, you also had your sworn testimony thrown out in the past for relying on emotions rather than facts. What's different about this case? No further questions, Your Honor.
I'm going to allow the witness to respond to the last question. Could it please be, do you want that question to stay on the record? Because if you do, please ask the question again, and please give the witness an opportunity to respond.
Should I re-ask the question?
Please.
What's different about this case if you've been paid in the past?
It's the same as every other case. I'm doing my job.
Thank you. Would you care to redirect this witness?
As the prosecution stated, you didn't interview Harley Diallo, correct?
No.
So how do you base the value of a car? Or what do you base the value of a car off of?
Based off the car itself and the parts of it and everything that goes into that car.
So is car appraisal about who owns the car?
No.
As a car appraiser, does it matter to you who built, owned, or previously owned the car?
Not at all.
So what matters is the car itself, correct?
Yeah.
As prosecution stated, you didn't have a boss at any point in your career. However, you did learn from people in order to get that certification that you have, correct?
Yes, I've had
Please
lots
stop
of teachers.
leading the witness.
Did you learn from someone in order to get the certification that you have?
Yes, I've learned from teachers and mentors on my way.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would you care to recross?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. I remind you to keep it within the scope of the redirect.
Yes, Your Honor. May I proceed?
You may.
Mr. Aoki, as we just heard, you said that you've had teachers in the past, correct?
Yeah.
Could you please refer to Exhibit D, which I believe you still have?
Which exhibit, Mr. Loescher?
Exhibit D.
Thank you.
Could you please explain what Exhibit D is to the court again?
It is my resume.
You say that you had teachers to walk you through, correct?
Yes.
Make sure you're talking to the microphone, Mr. Aoki.
Yes, I have.
Looking at Part 2 of the exhibit, could you please read the automotive service technician in full?
It says, coursework towards certification as an automotive service technician.
It says coursework
Yes.
towards? That would mean that you haven't graduated, correct?
No.
Which means that you are not a certified technician like you told me earlier, correct?
I only said I worked for about 2 to 3 years in that field.
You told me that you were a certified technician earlier in this, correct?
No.
Mr. Loescher, you are making a bold accusation in my court. Do you feel that this witness has impeached himself?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can I ask counsel to come forward? Mr. Loescher, Ms. Pierre. Hello, am I back? Oh, I checked with the court reporter, and he did, in fact, at one point say that he was certified, but I think that was more of a misspoken opportunity than an intentional one, because I think later it was clarified in that same examination that he did not receive a certification. So I'm going to allow Mr. Loescher to clarify exactly what Mr. Aoki's standing is.
Are you ASEC certified?
No.
Okay. So that means that you have never professionally worked on a car, correct?
I did throughout college a little bit, but I'm not. Not after, because I was not certified. Not after that. No.
So working as a loan appraiser and a uncertified technician, you think that you are better at evaluating cars than a group of people who have been doing this for longer than you and have more certification than you?
Well, I am certified to appraise cars.
Kelly Blue Book is too, and they have auto technicians.
Would you
and all the
please
like.
ask a question and not make a statement? And I'm reminding all attorneys of this.
Does Kelly Blue Book not have anybody who is auto appraised and also a technician?
They do.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Aoki, you may step down. Unfortunately, as a judge, you sometimes have to make some very tough decisions. And with 9 minutes, 8 minutes left in the school day and a witness and closing arguments to go, there is no way we could possibly finish this in the time we have allotted to ensure a fair trial. With that in mind, I am going to ask my members of the jury, would you be willing to come in during homeroom next week so that we may properly give the time allotted for this to finish? Jury members, if you could give me a thumbs up that would be all right with you. Outstanding. This court will stand in recess until Tuesday, homeroom time, where we will pick up with the defense's case. We are in recess. First of all, can we give a big round of applause to... If you guys just want to hang out here until 3:15, I'll let you know when that is. Cheerleaders, you need to be dismissed. You have something going on. I don't even know exactly what it is, but you're dismissed. They're yours. Mr. Loescher, Mr. Hopkins, I am officially putting you in charge of making sure tables and chairs get back to my room. Draft whomever you would like.
Jurors, can you come here, please? Now, honestly, it's... Dude, that was so